Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Sunday Morning Transplant Coffee Talk. I am your host, Steve Belcher. This morning, we got a wonderful show with you. Live from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, we have Shaleatha Faith. How you doing, Shaleatha?
I'm doing well. How are you? Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, pretty good. Thank you. But before we get started on the show, I just wanted to talk about what we've been trying to do with our campaign and promoting organ donation. And recently, well, let me say this: selling kidneys in the United States is illegal. This was enacted in 1984 with the passage of the National Transplant, I'm sorry, the National Organ Transplant Act. Iran is the only nation that allows organs to be brought and sold legally. And they also place restrictions on the commercial organ trade in an attempt to limit transplant tourism. The market is contained within the country uh, to prevent foreigners are not allowed to buy organs of Iranian citizens. The reason why we had this message because lately we posted pictures of people um, seeking kidney donation, and there's been a response of people who want to donate but want to be compensated. We here at Urban Kidney Alliance and Sunday Morning Transplant Coffee Talk do not, I repeat, we do not condone the selling of organs. We are an educational site and we do help anyone who want us to put their picture as they would usually do. We would do that. And if someone reaches out, we would try to connect. But again, we do not condone the selling of kidneys by any means. And if we get anyone who wants to be compensated, we will ban you from our page, period. So, with that said, we will go to our show with Shaleatha Faith. All right, how's it going, Shaleatha?
Good. How are you?
Great. I'm good, thanks. So, Shaleatha, you are a three-time organ transplant recipient.
That's correct.
Wow. Wow. Some people don't even get one chance to get on the transplant list, let alone um, three times.
Yes, I'm blessed.
Right. Wow. So tell us, how did your story start with kidney disease?
Basically, I went away to college in my freshman year, and I went to acute kidney failure while I was there. I started with excruciating pain in my back, along the kidney area, extreme swelling, nausea, vomiting. I thought I just had to adjust to the fluid temperatures and being in the air conditioning all the time, and then going out into the heat. And then one day I was on the verge of barely breathing. We weren't able to call 911 because it was a category 4 hurricane going on, and the hospitals were shut down. They had medical staff living in the hospital for the duration of this hurricane. So I was forced to take campus security card to the hospital. I got to the hospital, my blood pressure was 235 over 118. Um,
Wow.
they asked me to wait to be seen, and I said, I don't know if I'm having a heart attack or a stroke, but I know if something happens to me, my mother will be suing. I need immediate medical attention. So they directed me to an emergency room, where I stayed for 12 hours. They gave me Lasix so that I could release the fluid by urinating. And when they finally did take me to a room, they allowed me to call my mother, who was here in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee. And I talked to her for a little bit. And then I told her I was tired, that I was going to get off the phone and hang up. I asked where my siblings were, and she told me they were sleeping. She said, "Do you want me to wake them?" I said, "No." And honestly, I just told her I was tired so I could get off the phone because I thought I was getting ready to die. And as soon as I
Mm.
from her, I coded. And they called her back and said, "We don't know how long she's going to make it through the night. She's coded. We have her on a ventilator. How soon can you get here?" So my mom got there the next morning. and I was on the ventilator for 3 days. And as soon as I woke up, I was able to write notes. I remembered the date I came into the hospital, and I asked for my mom. So that's how the story began. And I actually had a physical before I went to school, and that was 3 weeks prior, and everything was fine. I showed no signs of kidney damage at that time.
Okay. Okay. And so you said you got home and you didn't have no signs of kidney damage?
No, well, before I left for college, when I had the physical, I they didn't say anything. I had no signs. I had a chest X-ray. I had no fluid,
Did they
nothing.
check your labs
Yes. Yep.
and the numbers was good?
Yep. I had no signs of anything with the physical before I left.
So did they tell you what was the direct cause of your kidney disease?
I know the direct cause was diabetes and high blood pressure. However, they just failed acutely at that time.
Okay, okay. And so when you left from college, did you start dialysis?
Yes, I was in the hospital in Florida for about a month and a half. I came back home and I learned how to do peritoneal dialysis at home. We had decided that I didn't want to do hemodialysis and have my blood leave my body. I didn't want the fistula, and I just felt peritoneal was the best option for me. So I learned how to do the peritoneal dialysis, and I was fine a month later. I enrolled back in school here at Concordia University, and I was doing my peritoneal. At first, I was doing manual exchanges 3 times a day, and then I moved to the cycler machine, and I would just do it overnight. I'd hook up at nighttime and get off in the morning and start my day.
Okay, so when you was in Florida and you got diagnosed, you said it was acute.
Yes.
So your kidneys didn't recover.
No, they did not.
Okay.
Just
Uh,
failed abruptly, but definitely from diabetes and high blood pressure. My mother found out I was diabetic at age 2. And I accidentally found out I had hypertension while playing on a high blood pressure cuff at Walgreens when I was 16. So we don't know how long I had the high blood pressure. And then I was given a mild dose of medication that wasn't adequate for the high level of blood pressure that I had.
okay.
So
Okay.
that, correlated to the kidney failure.
Right. Okay. And so you started this in 1999, and your first transplant was in 2002.
Yes, I was called for a cadaver kidney and pancreas on January 8th, 2002, right after the new year. And I went to the hospital, had the transplant, and received the kidney and the pancreas, and it clotted off in less than 24 hours. Doctors did not know I had any clotting issues because I had never done hemodialysis and my blood had never left my body. I had always been on the peritoneal dialysis with the fluid exchanges.
Wow. So you're saying 24 hours after you received your first transplant, the organ clotted.
Yes.
Wow.
So they
Um,
go back in and remove those organs out of my body. They ended up having to leave my stomach open and pack it because infection has set up. And I was in the intensive care unit for a month after that. And then I was moved to a regular room for 2 additional weeks. Then I developed pneumonia. So right after I got out, I had to go back for another 2 weeks. It was a long road recovering from that.
wow. So when they came in the room and told you that about the transplant rejecting because of the clot, what went through your mind?
Honestly, I was just not even really realizing that I was even in the world. They were keeping me heavily sedated and medicated. Again, I was in so much pain. The infection was just spreading through my body. My stomach was open and packed. At one point, I was able to gather enough energy to look down in my stomach and saw that it was open, and I was just completely medicated after that because they didn't want me to be stressed out or any of that.
Wow. Wow. Unbelievable. So when you started back on dialysis for the second time,
Mm-hmm.
did you do hemo or you went back? I mean, of course you couldn't do PD because of your stomach was open.
Right. I wasn't able to do PD. They did try, but the stomach had too much scar tissue. So I ended up going on hemodialysis. I was forced to go in center. It was definitely an experience, but I learned the process of how everything was supposed to go. I knew I had to advocate for my own health care. And so I did the hemo until 2004 when my sister donated a kidney to me.
Wow. So just how did that conversation come about?
She actually just offered one day. The type of person where I would never ask anyone to donate. That's just something I'm not comfortable with. I'm not going to do. I don't feel anyone has an obligation. So she offered. She was actually a student at Florida A&M, and came back home, moved back home to get the testing done and donate the kidney to me. And she enrolled in Marquette University here and graduated from there. So, it wasn't just, well, I'll donate over Christmas break and I'll go back to school. She actually uprooted, her educational aspects.
Wow. Wow. That was a sacrifice.
Right. Exactly.
Um, so everything went well. How's your sister doing now?
She's doing wonderful. She actually lost 60 pounds after she gave me the kidney. And with a lot of us in the Black community, body mass is a major issue of why we can't donate. My sister is actually 5'11", and she just decided to lose the weight and got healthier after she gave me the kidney, which was great because my parents, a lot of people were concerned about that. Like, you need to change your diet, you need to lose some of that weight. Even though you are tall, you only have one kidney now, so you need to protect that one kidney.
Wow.
She actually follows a vegan diet now, and she's doing wonderful. She actually went back to work 3 weeks after she gave me the kidney. So,
Wow, amazing. Amazing. So that second transplant, how long did that last?
9 years. Yep, 9 years.
Did they say why? I mean, being that there's your sister, some people will probably be wondering if she's your sister and that's like a living related donor, why would the organ only last 9 years instead of maybe more than that?
We actually matched 100%. The antigens were 6 out of 6, and that only happens to 1 out of 600,000 people. They thought that we were identical twins. My hospital had never seen her until she started the testing. So what happened was I started to develop protein in my urine, and my hypertension came back. My brother was actually killed in 2009, and just the stress from all of that brought the high blood pressure back.
Sorry for
We
your loss.
Thank you so much. We were caring for his 3 children full time. We had custody of them, and it was just a lot to experience that loss and the grief process. And
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, but you were taking your medicine and everything.
yes,
Hmm. Okay.
right.
And so the last transplant, how did that happen?
The last transplant that I just had, I actually got the call at 4:38 in the morning on the 4th of July. So it really was Independence Day for me. And they were told that I had an hour or less to get to the hospital. They preferred less because they needed to match up our blood samples from the donor. So when I got the call, I was actually asleep and I thought I was dreaming that the phone rang. And then I said, wait a minute, did my phone ring? And then I answered it and I said, hello, but no one was there. So I said, well, they hung up. But something told me to look back at my call log on my cell phone, and I saw that it was a missed call. I said, well, no one hung up. I actually didn't answer. So I called the number back, And she said, "Hi, Shaleatha. Happy 4th of July. This is Penny." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'm calling from Freighter Transplant Team." And I said, "Oh my God." And she said, "How soon can you get here?" And I said, "Well, how soon do you want me there?" She said, "As soon as you can get here, preferably less than an hour." And I said, "Do I have time to take a shower?" She said, "Take the quickest shower you've ever taken in your life." So my sister and I rode to the hospital. I got there. We immediately started the testing, and they took me into surgery at midnight. All they told me was that the kidney came from out of state. So that was all that I knew. And then they told me they were going to let me know if it was a match or not.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
Yep.
So, um, when was this? Like 6 months ago?
No, this was July 4th of this year. So it's
Oh,
just,
I'm sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry.
it's been,
Wow. So, I mean, not even 4 months.
no, it's
Three,
just
about,
3 days ago.
I'm sorry.
It's just been 90 days, 3 days ago.
Oh, congratulations. Congratulations. And how's your numbers running?
My numbers are perfect. My creatinine level is zero point 0.8. And some people who have never had kidney problems don't have a zero point 0.8 creatinine. My lab's been really good. The only thing that has really been a problem is potassium, but of course, they want you to stay away from fruits and vegetables, and those are my favorites. Then recently I had a low white blood cell count. So that means some type of infection is set up. But I work with children, so that's possible. And then with the weather changing and things like that. So, and I probably need to add some more fresh fruits and vegetable intake. I did try to decrease it for a while because of
Hmm.
potassium levels. So I figure if I increase that back up, get more vitamins in, then I should be able to bring that back up to a normal level.
Yeah, I would have to tell you, I'm jealous of that zero point 0.8 because my creatinine is like 1.0 something, but still, you know,
Don't be
uh,
you
wow.
need it back
So,
down.
so let me ask you, what has this third gift of life done for you? I mean, again, as I said in the beginning of the broadcast, there's people on dialysis who's been on dialysis 5, 10, 15 years that hasn't been caught not once. And by you being a three-time recipient, what has that done for you to give back to the community?
First of all, it is such a blessing because it didn't have to be me. Um, in April, I actually got into a car accident, and the day I came home from the car accident, I started to have severe chills. I thought maybe I had picked up something from a dialysis center because I had went to an outside center because my home tech was out of town. And I went to the emergency room a couple days later. I just figured I had the bug from the dialysis center. And when I went to the hospital, they said, "You have 103-degree temperature. We're going to admit you." And when they did the testing, I actually had a blood infection. So they admitted me to intensive care, and I was in there for a while. They did all kinds of tests to see if the infection had reached my brain. Just, I was so ill, like near death. So I got out of the intensive care, went to a regular room, and was released from the hospital in the first week of May. Second week of May came. It was actually the anniversary date of my transplant my sister gave me, and I had to go back to the ER. I thought I had a blood clot in my leg because originally they had found a blood clot on my liver that I didn't even know I had. Had I not gotten to that car accident, I never would have knew. So they put me on blood thinners, and I went back to the hospital thinking I had a blood clot. They said, "No, you just have a collection of blood on your leg. It's not a clot." So they kept me in the hospital for almost another week. And then I got out and went home. I'm still not well from the first time that I was in the hospital in April. And then June comes and I get another 103-degree temperature and I'm having chills. So I have to go back again and I stay for another week. So at about this time, I'm turning around. I'm starting to feel a little better, but I'm still weak and fatigued. And a rounding attendant came in while I was an inpatient, and he told me, he said, I'm going to see what I can do to get you moved up on the list. So the whole time I'm in the hospital this time, I never see him again. I had dealt with a lot of political issues with my hospital as far as being disqualified and having to threaten to contact my attorney for legal representation for being kicked off the list unnecessarily, having to threaten media. Channel 4 News WTMJ here in Milwaukee actually did contact me regarding a story about Freighter because they had had some issues with previous transplants and got suspended for a while from accreditation for transplants. So, I threatened to call that reporter that contacted me and have her get involved in my case. So I never saw that doctor again, and I'd had issues with other token African Americans on the staff that kicked me off the transplant list because of losing my balance, which Freighter was the reason I lost my balance. They did a botched surgery on my left leg when they put a fistula in and it clotted off. And I told them it clotted right away and they left it in clotted for a week. So I had Steele syndrome from the top of my hip to the bottom of my toes, no blood flow whatsoever for a week. And they wanted to amputate my leg and I said no. So I went to physical therapy for 8 months. I got full body massages 3 times a week for a year. And, I was able to go from not walking at all to using a walker to using a cane. So I still don't have my balance back. I'm still using the cane. And, she kicked me off the list because of that.
Wow. You've been through a lot.
Yes.
I mean, praise God. God has been watching over you.
Yes,
to go through all that and be a 3-time transplant recipient is nothing but the testimony of God. We had someone, June Kaufman, asked, what anti-rejection meds are you on now?
Cellcept. I take Prograf, prednisone, and Septra.
Okay.
So the prednisone that I'm on now is only 5 milligrams. I'm down to the lowest dose. Cellcept, I am taking 1,000 at night and 750 during the daytime. And then the Septra is just 1 pill.
Okay. Wow. So since your 3rd transplant, you've become really involved in kidney disease advocacy. Tell us about that.
I've been in advocacy with kidney disease for a while. I've done advocacy for a lot of centers. I've supported a lot of patients. I've met so many people along this journey since 1999. But just since I went on dialysis the last 5 years and before I got this transplant, I have met and encouraged more people than I can even count. I have people on the daily that will just inbox me to ask me questions or can you just pray for me? It's good to know somebody that's going through this. I actually met a 5-year-old little girl who just recently received a liver last December, and I have become so close with her family. I have a friend right now, her daughter is in Children's Hospital awaiting a heart transplant. And just, if I can help in any way, not just kidneys, but organ donation, period. And I've started my own nonprofit organization, KOKD, Knocking Out Kidney Disease. And I'm also working with the Blood Center of Wisconsin with their Code R program to promote kidney disease within the Black church community here in the Milwaukee area.
Wow. Absolutely. That's great to hear that. Because we need it. We definitely need it. You would think that organizations such as Kidney Foundation and Kidney Fund and these other large organizations that deal with kidney disease advocacy would be spreading this information like wildfire in the urban communities, especially the Black community, where this disease runs rampant. But
Yes.
it takes people like you, myself, and other people that's on Facebook that's doing things in their respective community to get this message out and to let people know that this is no joke. They're not, you would think they would be putting up more health promotion billboards than building dialysis units.
Exactly.
And, they're not going to build a dialysis unit for nothing. They already know and pre-see this, almost just like the school to the prison pipeline, where they could uh, pretty much determine if
A
you're not
student.
doing well in reading.
Exactly, by third grade.
Yeah, you're more likely to be in prison or jail by 21.
Right.
So what does KOKD do? You mentioned you have some events coming up when we talked offline.
Yes, I'm actually doing an event for the month of Halloween, actually Orange Tober. And I'm having a harvest fest, but we're going to be registering organ donors. And basically Orange Tober is promoting everyone and providing awareness so they can put that orange dot sticker on their license and sign up and register to donate. There are currently 463,000 people on dialysis right now, and that number grows daily by the thousands. And the government is getting 72,000 per year per patient. So this is a 48 billion. They don't really care to see people getting transplants and keeping transplants and maintaining them. Transplant drugs are only paid for by Medicare for 3 years. After that, the patient is on their own. So that's why we see a lot of the turnover rate, people back on dialysis after they get a transplant, or they say, they're deterred in the first place. Oh, I won't be able to afford the medications, or I won't keep the kidney, so I'll just stay on dialysis 20 years. You know, and I know people that have been on 20 years, don't want a transplant or are scared to get one. I've talked to so many people and encouraged them. And I know some people that were gun ho about not getting a transplant at first that have gotten transplants. So, it's all about, we have to educate our people. We can't just always listen to what the doctor says, because they're getting paid. This is a paycheck for them. It's not their life, it's yours. And that's the mentality I took. And I stood on my faith and I said, I'm going to learn everything I need to know. And I want to not only be knowledgeable myself, but I want my people to be knowledgeable as well. So, I always advise people of the dietary limitations and what you can do, what you can't do. I want everyone to know that, ibuprofen is the most dangerous and acute way to receive or get kidney failure because of the type of prescription pills that it is. It affects the inflammatory system, and your kidneys are the first to go. A lot of these kids doing all these drugs and different prescription pills and narcotics, they have no idea what they're setting themselves up for.
Wow. You mentioned that Medicare pays for 36 months of anti-rejection medicine, and that is definitely correct. But I was just reading yesterday. I was looking through some of my information, and I wish I would have had it with me because I didn't know you was going to mention that. But it said that if a person, now I want to make sure I get this correct. It said if a person had Medicare before they got kidney disease, then or disability, and it was on Medicare before they got kidney disease, and they got a transplant, that Medicare would cover it for the rest of their life. Did you hear anything like that?
I have not heard of that, but I mean, if they do, that's wonderful because they're grandfathered in, so to speak. So why wouldn't they continue to pay for those medications? What
Well,
I do know is that when people receive a transplant and they're not 100% healthy right after, and they have other health issues or underlying issues that resulted from the transplant, Medicare sometimes will extend that 36 months, but it's based on what the status of your health is at that time post transplant.
Right, right. Wow. Wow. So you shared something interesting off camera, and for people who are watching that are saved and believe in our Lord Jesus Christ, could you share your story of your faith and how it led to this third transplant?
Actually, I went in January. Well, let me take it back a little further. I usually listen to Pastor Jamal Bryant on Sunday mornings, sometimes, and I was listening to him for a couple weeks, around the time I was really sick the first of the year, and he stated that he was going to be doing an organ donation service. And I usually would, pray on the status online and ask God to give me a kidney, remove me from dialysis. I was ready to let that go. This had to be the year. I was praying specifically to get a kidney before I turned 40. I'll actually be 38 this month. I just would say specific things. I had started to put statuses up on Facebook that I was going to pack my bag for the hospital. I was speaking the kidney for this year. And my mom had passed away in 2017 from ovarian cancer. And I was just in the grieving process. Like, nothing is ever going to take that pain away. But if I could get something to just bring me joy, to just get my life somewhat back on track since her passing, this would have been the only thing. So I actually commented on Pastor Jamal's status. He said the donation service was going to be 1 week. And I answered, I said, oh my God, I have to fly there. I can't make it that week that soon. So the next time I listened to the sermon, he stated that it was actually going to be extended to January 31st. So my niece and I flew to Baltimore, and I luckily got some plane tickets for $44 at the last minute. Unheard of. And we flew to Baltimore and we went to the service, and he prayed for anyone that needed a transplant individually in the front of the church. And he laid hands on me and told me, like, you're going to get your organ in this season. And July 4th, I got that call.
Wow. Wow. That just sent chills that happened. Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the National Sabbath Donor Day.
National Sabbath Donor Day is basically over a weekend, Friday through Sunday, and it's basically promoting organ donation, preventative measures of kidney disease, and transplantation in the church community, specifically African American churches. We need to get the word out. 9 times out of 10, we're going to a church and there are people there who don't even know they are in stage 1 of kidney disease. So we need to get the preventative measures out. We need to educate our people. And I like the fact this year that it's November 9th through 11th, because 911, it is an emergency. We have too many people out here who are following the wrong dietary diets. Their consumption of what they're eating and drinking is literally what is killing them. Then we have the people on all these different prescriptions and the alcohol, excessive consumption of that. So we need to get the word out into the churches in the Black community.
Okay, so I just happened to find that information about the Medicare and transplant covering transplant drugs, and this is from the Medicare coverage of kidney dialysis and kidney transplant service. So what it says is that Medicare will continue to pay for your immunosuppressive drugs with no time limit if one of these conditions apply. You were already eligible for Medicare because of age or disability before you got end-stage renal disease. Basically what I said at first. and then you become eligible for Medicare because of age or disability after getting a transplant that was paid for by Medicare or paid for by private insurance that paid primary to your Medicare Part A coverage in a Medicare certified facility. So those are the only two conditions where there's no time limit for Medicare to pay for your prescription drugs. However, the normal coverage is if you're eligible for Medicare only because of permanent kidney failure, your Medicare coverage will end 36 months after the month of the transplant. Medicare won't pay for any services or items, including immunosuppressor drugs for patients who aren't eligible for Medicare. Wow. I mean, now, how many people of the thousands of people, I guess about 100,000 or more, waiting for a kidney transplant or a kidney pancreas transplant? How many people does that, represent, far as that who may get the transplant and not eligible to get coverage after the 36 months runs out? What happens to them?
This is the majority of transplant recipients who can't afford the medications.
Wow.
It's sad because the organs reject. They're sick. They're back on dialysis. That $48 billion industry, just keeps growing and growing and growing. And that's why here in Milwaukee and other places around the United States, we're seeing a DaVita on one corner and a Fresenius across the street on the other corner. And they're with literally now within every 5 to 7 miles.
Wow. I'm glad you pointed that out, Shaleatha. I really am because here in Baltimore, it's the same way. In fact, one zip code that I did a health fair in or participated 21212. I believe that's it. But anyway, over by John Hopkins Hospital, there are 17 dialysis clinics within a 2.5 to 3 mile radius or 15 minutes apart from each other. And it's a mixture of DaVita and Fresenius unit. And just like you said, here I'm in the suburbs of Baltimore, which is not even 5 minutes to get to city limits, Randallstown. And there is not less than 5 minutes from my house where I used to work as a charge nurse, PRN, is a 30-chair unit. And then right across the street in the nursing facility, there's a 12-unit Fresenius that accepts outpatients as well. I
Yeah.
mean, that can't just be the answer to just put more facilities up. It has to be something better than that, correct?
Yes, and it starts with education and awareness, but our people have to be receptive to the information. And, that's one of the problems. We have to accept it ourselves and we have to take action as far as changing our diets. And it's actually a lifestyle change. It's going to include diet, exercise, the mental, all of it, physical, everything.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
treat our bodies like temples and protect them. If you have high blood pressure, take your medication.
Right.
Reduce or eliminate your sodium intake. Watch what you're drinking and eating. And then
So,
stress kills. That's a big one.
right. We had a comment from June Kaufman out of North Carolina. She says incorrect. I'm not 65 years old. I'm 3 years post still on Medicare. So do you know why she would still be on Medicare? I mean, if she's not 65.
I would contact Social Security if I were her. and see if she's eligible to have them continue to be paid
No,
for.
she's still. I guess what she's saying is she's still getting Medicare, still paying for a transplant.
Well, it could be possible that maybe her health status, according to their records, isn't adequate enough for them to take her off. I've seen that. Right. If your case is an A1, then they'll keep paying. They did that for me when I had the second transplant.
Okay.
Right after the 36 months.
That makes sense. So
I got the transplant in 2004. I was not taken off until 2010.
Okay. So you raised another point that is concerning, and that was you being disqualified from the transplant list. Now,
Yes.
there's certain, I know there's certain protocols or criteria that one has to meet, but what was so insignificant about your disqualification that you felt like you was wrong?
For one, I live here in Milwaukee, and we have a specialty heart hospital, St. Luke's Hospital in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I had some cardiac issues that they were concerned about, and I previously had open heart surgery at age 23. So all of my care for anything cardiac related was done at St. Luke's. Freighter did not like the fact that I didn't pursue any cardiac care at their facility, which is where I was on the transplant list. Freighter is the top hospital for transplants in the Milwaukee area. I also was listed at UW-Madison, but got the call from Freighter first. So when I didn't want to see any of their cardiologists, they were upset about that. And they would tell me where we need a stress test, we need a heart catheterization. And I would say, okay, I'll arrange an appointment at St. Luke's to get that done. And they were not having it. So it finally came to a point where they sent me a letter and they said, well, we're going to have to take you off the list. We need a stress test. We need this. We need that. And I would tell them, I already got this at St. Luke's. My cardiologist said that it's fine to keep me on the list. My heart pressure has always ran on the high side. I had respiratory issues and my heart rate would be at 23. So he said it's fine for me to be on the list still. I don't have any blockages. I've had 2 heart catheterizations. Both of them have showed no nerve damage to the heart, none of that. So the next time they tried to kick me off, they went to the committee meeting and I had talked to my longtime transplant doctor, Dr. Johnson, and I told him, I said, they're trying to kick me off unnecessarily. I said, this is a bunch of political mess and I will be seeking legal representation. I said, when they kick me off, that'll be the prime time I get a call for the kidney. That's just how things work. So I got back on the list after that. And then I went for a 6-month follow-up earlier last year. And they had an African-American female nurse practitioner on the transplant team. She is the first African-American person to work full-time on the transplant team in a medical position. And she came into the room and did an assessment on me. And she said, I want to see you walk. Not want to, wanna. So I said, okay. I said, do you want me to walk with the cane or without it? She said, however you feel like you can walk, the best way for you, because I'm surely not going to bend over to help you up if you fall. So I lightly reported her to Freighter Patient Relations. I reported her to the head of the transplant team, to the physician's assistant who had been over my care since 1999, who was director of the program. I reported her to the chief of transplant staff. And next thing you know, I was off the list. I was sent a letter and I was told to go to my primary care doctor and get all these tests from her and a physical from her about my balance. And I politely let Freighter know and reminded them that I lost my balance because of a surgery that you all did, that you left a clotted fistula in my leg for a week. And you all want to amputate my leg. That's how severe this was. So, I threatened legal representation, media attention, And I got my primary doctor. She wrote a letter that how ludicrous that was, that I needed to be back on the list. And next thing you know, I was back on the list.
Wow.
And that was this year that I got back on the list.
Wow. Did you feel like you was up against a David and Goliath when you was going through this situation?
Yes, like it was literally me against them. I said, so let me go get me a team with the media and my attorney. So let's get the ball rolling because I'm not just going to stand down and take this. And, they're used to a lot of patients doing that. And they'll say, whatever goes, they're the doctor, this, that, and the other. But this is my life. I'm the patient and I know what's best for me. So
Woo.
I refuse to give up the fight.
Wow. So if this happened to you and it's thousands of people on the transplant list, how many other people are going through this, Shaleatha?
I'm sure plenty, many. Yeah, I've heard stories about people having issues with the same hospital I was at. That is the reason why I went and got on the list at UW-Madison. I said, I can't continue to keep dealing with them and this nonsense. At this rate, I won't be getting a transplant from here. So I need to seek other options. I had also made an appointment to go to Emory in Georgia, and I was actually supposed to go there in June when I was ill from the blood infection. So I had to cancel. And then the
Wow.
next month I get called for the kidney.
So Sandy says, she says, yes, at St. Barnabas Hospital in New Jersey, assessed my walking ability as the doctor told me. I see you are walking fast with no issues. I was somewhat confused as I never knew walking abilities were being assessed. I walk without a cane or walker. So people's walking ability is being assessed at some places for transplant criteria.
Obviously so. And they had never told me that before anyway. So I'm like, there are people who don't have limbs and have gotten transplants. So what is the deal with me walking with a cane and having issues with my left leg that you all caused?
Wait a minute. You said you know of some people who are amputees that received a kidney transplant?
Yes, yes. And they were going to my dialysis center and they were back on dialysis and they had received transplants before. I know two people personally.
Wow. So they had the amputation before the transplant.
Yes,
And then they got the transplant and ended up back on dialysis?
yes.
Wow.
And I have a friend right now. She recently got her leg amputated. She's still planning to get a transplant. They told her she had to lose weight, and then she had a foot infection set up. So she had to wait till that cleared up to get back on the list. So she ended up just getting the leg amputated because the infection started spreading. That's not stopping her from getting a transplant. So why assess someone that's somewhat mobile, cane or not, or what have you, or mobile period for a transplant?
Wow.
And they never give any reasoning. So I'm like, is this because prednisone can cause you to gain weight? They want you to be physical and do activity? Or what is their reasoning behind this? They provide none.
Mm.
And then that same nurse, when I had the transplant, as soon as I came up from recovery after receiving the kidney, she came in my room. I immediately dismissed her from my care and she gave a nonchalant apology. And then she went back and told her boss, who was the physician's assistant, who I know since 1999, about what happened. And I told her, I said, yes, I did report her previously, and she is not allowed to be in my care while I'm here. I
You
wouldn't have
talking
had.
about the nurse practitioner?
Yes. So she had a nasty attitude then. And my sister was in the room and she said, well, I thought you were still going off the recovery medication. I thought I was going to have to step in, but you handled it professionally and you weren't grogged up or anything. So I told her she's never allowed to be a part of my care anymore, ever.
Right. how important it is for people who are in urban communities, who are on the transplant list, or who are thinking about it, how important it is for them to be their own advocate.
It is so important. I can't even just, it's of the utmost importance because they will tell you anything, they will do anything. And you have to be able to know what's going on or have someone with you who can ask the questions. I encourage everyone that's going through the process, if you have a question, write it down, take it to the doctor with you, ask questions. It's no such thing as a dumb question, no such thing as too many questions. If you remember something later, call and ask, leave no stone unturned because it's your life.
Wow. Wow. Again, I mean, your story is so amazing with everything that you went through, the battles with the hospital, being taken off the list, from the first transplant that clotted.
Yes.
You've been through a lot, and then to get a third transplant, and then to be an advocate. I mean, God has a plan for you,
Yes,
most
he does.
definitely, and I really believe that that plan is to advocate for the thousands of individuals in Milwaukee that don't know um, the system, don't know about kidney disease or diabetes or hypertension, or that diabetes and hypertension are the two leading causes of kidney failure, and those two chronic diseases run rapid in the Black community.
Yes, I do. Throughout
Let me,
generations.
right. Let me just ask you this. We're kind of coming down to the end of our show, but when you was in the facility getting dialysis, did you see any staff shortages or unsafe dialysis care?
Every day. That's why I left. And I actually got to a point where, I was advocating for patients. I was giving them the compliance number for DaVita, for Cineas, for Madison to report what was going on with their care. There were staff shortages. We had staff coming to work in their regular clothes and not scrubs. We had staff leaving out for long periods of time, not noticing that patients were bleeding out, not responding to patients. Um, I mean, it was ludicrous the things that were going on. Staff who were not washing their hands, just I can't even explain. Untrained staff that were supposed to be getting trained on the job and not knowing what they were doing. Like I have been through it. So I was always advocating for myself, you know, just to keep myself alive. And there are other people that couldn't do that. I remember a time being in center and there was a blind man there on a correctional dialysis visit, and the nurse had gave him his medication one time and forgot and went to give it to him again. And I'm like, he already had his medication. And she was like, "Are you sure?" And then she looked in the computer and it was charted that he had it. He's blind. He can't even see, on his way to some prison. So, I mean, it's just, I've seen so much overlooked and swept under the rug. I actually had a fall on black ice right outside the door of a dialysis center, and they refused to give me any kind of type of incident reports, refused to interview witnesses, look at the cameras, just refused to comply with anything.
Right.
And,
Um,
started several, constantly reporting to the dialysis center. And one instance, the state was there, and I didn't know it was the state. That's when they came to me and said, "Well, you already take yourself off the machine here at dialysis and manage your own machine and blood pressure. Why aren't you doing this at home?" I said, "Well, I asked you all if I could do it at home, but you all refused to sign off. You didn't want me to." Because basically, they were getting more money with me as an in center patient. So finally, they were on the verge of getting shut down. They kicked me out and I did home dialysis. I started training the week after they asked me.
you know, as a healthcare worker and as a nurse, I have to agree with you what you said about, especially the example you used about the nurse. I found myself in a situation like that in my career. Thank God I didn't give the second dose, but the company, and this is no excuse not for myself or for the nurse, because we supposed to definitely be healthcare advocates and, go by the 5 nursing rights when you give him medication administration, and especially to make sure you give them the right dosage, the right medication to the right patient, the right time. So these large companies, they create the condition for these accidents to happen, and I don't want to say they sit back and plot and plan to create it on purpose, but when you don't have enough staff, or when you have 30 patients and you only have 2 nurses to cover 30 patients, one nurse takes care of 15 and the other nurse takes care of 15. And what that care entails is medication administration, assessments, checking, your heart rate, your lungs, and for edema, and that any complications that may arise during your treatment, we have to intervene. If the technician can't handle it, then it goes to the nurse. So these companies create these conditions, and the only way that's going to stop it, people speak up. But if you speak out, you're going to lose your job to a certain degree. You know, they prevent you or discourage you from organizing or forming a union, so you can't voice your complaints that way to gain any type of leverage on the quality care that you're delivering. So it, it's just ridiculous. These companies are not making money unless the machines are running. So
Exactly.
if someone doesn't show up for treatment, they do all they can to track them down, to find out why they're not there. And I understand some people may be concerned, but they use these tactics of pretty much calling people, telling them, if you don't come, this is going to happen, that's going to happen, not understanding if the person has anything outside of dialysis that they need to take care of. Of course, dialysis is very important, and I do not encourage anyone to miss treatment. But what do you do for the person that something pending happened, that they missed their ride, or they can't get there, or they live miles away and don't have dependable transportation, or just something out of their control to prevent them from coming in, and then they get chastised for not showing up or not calling in.
I had
So
when my mother passed away. I had the worst social worker on this side of the planet. She absolutely did nothing. She didn't even check emails. Anything that I needed from a social worker, I handled myself. So she called me around the time of my mother's funeral and said, what are you going to do? Because if you don't have dialysis, you're going to die. She left it on my voicemail because she didn't know I had found a place in Michigan and scheduled my own dialysis kit.
yeah, so you see what I'm saying? Using words like that to make people almost feel guilty that they had to take care of something else and miss their dialysis appointment. And like I said, dialysis is definitely important, but if you set it up to where, like I said, you have to be your own advocate, because
Yes.
if you don't, I mean, you can fall through the cracks and get very discouraged at this process. And as I was mentioning to you, if any chairs are empty, they'll find people to try to bring in, and then that way, at the end of the day, they could kind of send the staff home and decrease the staffing ratio.
Yep.
Again, I found myself in the same situation. I can't tell you how many times I worked I'm not going to call the company's name. We all know what large companies are out there, but about 5 or 10 years ago, I was placed in a situation where um, it got down to 9 patients and was 3 techs per patient, and then they sent. I'm sorry, 1 tech per 3 patients. So you had 3 staff there. They sent one of the staff home and had me pick up the 3 patients and still be in charge, which I mean, I don't have any problem if somebody's sick or got to leave and I got to take a patient assignment. I don't have any issues with that. The issue comes into play when you send someone home and expect the charge nurse to pick up a 3 patient assignment and then still perform my charge nurse duties. And if something happened to a patient that one of the other techs is monitoring, say for instance, a cold, God forbid a cold happens, then I got to leave the patients that I'm watching to attend to that cold. And who's going to watch my patients when there's only 2 other staff and they're going to be more than likely involved in the cold process until paramedics get to the clinic? So
And that's actually why my nurse left the center she was at where I was. And I went on home dialysis first, and she came right behind me.
yeah,
So
they
that,
create these conditions all over. I mean, if it's happening here, Baltimore, Milwaukee, then it's happening in Richmond, Virginia, Houston, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, down in Florida, down Louisiana, California. I mean, it's happening all over, and no one really knows because it's pretty much on the inside, unless you hear from a patient experience that's really keen and observant to what's going on, you're
right,
less likely to hear these accounts.
right. And it's sad
So
because people don't want to speak out, or they don't know how to, or, it's just whatever the doctor says. And
okay.
doctor is doing rounds 3 times a week. He's getting paid regardless. It was days I had my head under the cover and seen, and he didn't see me at all. But he's paid though.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot. I've seen that a lot, many times, many times. So we're about to wind this up. I want to ask somebody who may be watching, who may watch the recorded broadcast, and they just started dialysis, or they just been told they was diagnosed with kidney disease and they need to start dialysis. What words of hope, advice, or encouragement could you give them to, you know, hold to them so they could make it through this process?
Dialysis does not have to be the end of the world. I used to thank God that there was a treatment. It could be liver disease. There is no treatment for that. It could have been cancer. That's terminal. So dialysis doesn't have to be any of that. So I just encourage people to get educated, read, Google as much as you can. Um, just get knowledgeable about what's going on with your body, your kidneys, your life. Question everything any medical professional tells you if you don't understand or you have any type of question. In addition to that, one of the things I found when I first went on dialysis, there was no Facebook in 1999. Now, in the latter years, there are so many kidney groups and support groups and just any type of group you can name about kidneys, dialysis, transplantation. They're out there. Join them. Other people are going through the same things as you. You can ask them about it, get different perspectives and experiences, and take those notes and take them back to your medical professional. Go over that information. Get your family educated. Educate others in your community as well. And ask questions. Attend,
I'm
you
sorry.
know,
Excuse me.
hospital. Just do as much as you can to learn about kidney disease and what's going on with you. And as far as the transplant process, the diet, the financial aspects, everything.
Wow, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Anybody you want to say, give a shout out to?
I definitely have to give a shout out to my little friend Nevaeh, who's in the hospital. She's awaiting heart transplant now. She's having some issues with low oxygen, not eating right now. I want to say hi to my little fighter, Zanaya, who received her liver last December.
Wow.
She's going through labs and having to see a neurologist now, but her labs were just perfect last week for it's been a while, but they've been perfect. So I'm really happy for her. I want to thank my sister for donating to me all those years ago. It's still never forgotten. This year, she told me she wanted to celebrate the anniversary of her giving me the kidney. And I said, well, why? Like, we usually don't do that. I'll acknowledge it or whatever, but we don't just go out to eat and do this and do that. And especially since I didn't have it anymore. And she said, no, we're going to do this. And it ended up, I was in the hospital. But then 2 months later, I got a kidney. I'd also like to thank my donor's family who donated recently. It was such a blessing. My antibodies were at 99 and 100% the last 5 years every month. And, without this kidney, I would still be on dialysis another 2 to 5 years, which would have made a total of 7 to 10 years.
Wow.
So I just want to thank them. I don't know who they are. I've made contact with them through my social worker, so I'm praying for a response soon. But I just want to thank them, and hopefully one day I can show them this broadcast.
All right. How can people reach you pertaining to the Knockout Kidney Disease Foundation?
You can email me at knockingoutKidneyDisease@gmail.com, or you can contact me by phone at 414-353-1672.
Great, great. Appreciate it. Can you repeat that again?
Yes, I can. It's knockingoutKidneyDisease@gmail.com. And my telephone number is 414-353-1672.
Great, great. All right, Shaleatha, again, thank you for coming on our show. We definitely enjoy hearing your story and pray that all will be well and it will be no more rejection and you can live a full, healthy life and do what you do best with this advocacy. And we definitely wish you well with your foundation and hope that, possibly collaborating to come out to Milwaukee and just spread that information because it's definitely needed in urban communities.
I would love that. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me on the show. It was a pleasure.
All right, and I'll be talking with you off camera as well. So again, thanks for tuning in. I would like to thank everybody for tuning in for Transplant Coffee Talk. I'm your host, Steve Belcher, and tune in next week for another great show. Talk to you then. See you later, Shaleatha.
Thank you. Take care.
All
Bye.
right.